Aloha and welcome back to this week's episode of the Embodied Healing Self. So, this week, it is my deepest honor to share with you one of my beautiful soul sisters with you today, Jelena Virijevic. She lives in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and she is a women's empowerment coach. She's an executive, she's a mother, she's a soul sister, and so much more. I can't wait to share her values and her views on feminine conscious leadership, the path of devotion to spirit, the fusion between soul and strategy and spirit and feminine leadership, and how it shows up in our own inner power and our inner wisdom today. So thank you so much, Jelena, for being here today.
Thank you. Oh, what a beautiful intro. I need to save that for myself, Jen. That was a beautiful, that was very touching, and I'm honored to be here.
Oh, well, thank you for receiving. So I want to invite you just to share a little bit about yourself so that we can really allow the listeners to discover who Jelena is, how you
Yeah.
got here. So if you would be willing to just share some story, some of your life experiences that brought you to this moment right here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. And hopefully, as I've been on my path and as I've listened to so many other women trailblazing through, their own journeys and their own stories, that's absolutely empowered me and helped me in my own transformation. And what I would share is, I think many of us, or maybe, some of us have experienced that moment in our lives when it just felt like we look around and we notice that there has to be more. There has to be more to life than this. Is this it? Is this just what I'm just going to keep doing this thing? And so for me, I had achieved a lot at a young age. And so that moment came maybe earlier than some. And again, there's no timeline with these kinds of things, but at least for me in my 20s, I had already had a very successful career. I had a downtown apartment in Chicago, like 4 blocks away from the Sears Tower, Willis Tower, in the middle of the financial district, and was married to somebody that was a crazy romantic story of how we met overseas. And, it was just like all of the things were lining up to what people told you that you made it. And so I was, working my job and thinking about, oh, do I do a master's, right? Just following the ladder, the rule book that someone or our society prescribed, and found myself, we were ready to have a child and I was pregnant, and then found myself very shortly after I had my son, my first son, feeling completely overwhelmed and completely I did not have the tools to not only be a mother, step into motherhood, but now how was I going to navigate a career and my husband's career and just how to integrate all of these things into life. And I didn't have any tools in terms of, I'd practice yoga, but more recreationally, right? Like the way, it's like you go to a gym and somebody takes a yoga class, and that was kind of my journey at that time. But it was always, there was something there always itching. And I'll never forget feeling, just after 10 months of no sleep, my son was a horrible sleeper. I was breastfeeding, which was really more like pumping a million times a day, and going to work. And I'll never forget, hauling, many of the mothers know, hauling that big, pumping bag around, and my right shoulder is half down for months of carrying that thing. Just so committed and devoted to this little person, while my own self was just crumbling, right? Not knowing how to take care of myself because I didn't know how to do it before. And now I had this human that I was just madly in love with and would give everything to. And I just found myself feeling like there has to be another way. I can't do this. And listen to my words even. I said, I can't, right? I wasn't even allowing myself to be supported by people around me, let alone God or spirit. I was in this mode of having to do it all on my own and having to control the outcome. And so when you get to that lowest of the low, that was my breaking point of just exhaustion, just pure exhaustion, physically, mentally, all of those things. I had the good fortune of having an angel friend in my life that said, come take a class with me. And we did this yoga class by the beach or something, and it was just magical. But it brought me back to my sense of self, my connection to breath, that day became like the core tenet of like, oh, wait a second, I can access my breath at any moment. This is one of my superpowers. I can literally, I don't have to go to a fancy class. I don't have to have a fancy gym. I just need to make time to connect in here, into my heart, into my breath. And so there's many more layers of the story that have unfolded over the years, but I will share that like just there are those defining moments where we have the breaking point and we say it's enough. And hopefully it's the transition is powerful enough, or those moments are powerful enough that it propelled. And for me, it's been the last 8 years. It's just been continuous growth and transformation from there, from getting my yoga teacher training, running 1,000-person team right now that I'm doing, transacting and selling a $50 million business, and now hopefully selling another one. And so, for me, I've just been interested in my own journey. How do I weave what I'm calling conscious feminine leadership, but how do I weave the feminine principles of devotion, intention, and presence into how we relate to everything we do, but specifically business, because that's a place where it just feels needed, for lack of a better word. I feel called to bring some more softness into a very structured system, and just allow all of us to be supported, not just myself. And so that's kind of my calling. That's what I'm here doing. And I'm excited to share more with you, Jen. Sorry, I'm going all over, but
yes,
but it's all one. It's all one thing.
it is all one thing. And thank you for sharing. That was such a beautiful opener for this conversation. And one of the gifts and the teacher that I see in you is this ability to really still be grounded and intentional and create aligned action and infuse it with, as you said, this path of devotion. And it's so beautiful and so needed for so many women that I know, and even more so in the time that we're living right now. And this concept of conscious feminine leadership, and I know that many of my listeners, and probably listeners that you will be sharing this with as well, can relate to sort of this. I do see like a generational energetic pattern that we're creating right now as women, where I think maybe our mothers and fathers taught us that women can do anything a man can do. Okay, yeah, we can. And guess what? We have.
Yeah.
and and we can also birth children. And I know, in fact, in my own personal story, I have shared that with so many people. I was very much on that path. Mine was a little different. I was an executive engineer working 80 hours a week when I was pregnant, and experienced a near-death experience in the birth of my first daughter. But I literally would say to myself, I can do everything a man can do and have babies. And what was the one thing that broke me, right? It was the one experience calling for the ultimate path of surrender was in the moment where I was becoming a mother. And so I say that because there are so many women, and we are in a time where we can do anything we want to do. And just because we can doesn't mean we should or we have to. And we can create it in a way that flows for us. There is a path to not let go of that part of us, not let go of the part of us that knows how to achieve and bring success, because the world still needs that too. The world needs that. If we're going to create change, if we're too much in the softer, nurturing, feminine energy, it doesn't always come to fruition in some ways. It takes both. So what I'm noticing and witnessing in the communities and in the women that I'm coaching is that there is this need to really embrace, sounds like feels like a good word for me, but to embrace, not completely let go, but to embrace both of those parts of us in our wholeness, and to really own our inner power, right? You and I talked about empowerment coaching is something that you do. And one of the things that came up was it's different. There's a difference between owning your power and like being in your inner power. And there's like a wisdom that sort of comes through, and there is a new way of creating or show, okay, not even just creating your own business, but showing up in your work, in your executive role, or creating your own business where we can choose to move forward in a way where we haven't forgotten that devotion, that intention, that softer, nurturing side of us.
Yes. Yeah.
So, what do you see most women are struggling with in order to take that first step on that path?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that permission that I'm worth it, permission that it's not for those women over there that get to do it, but not me. Right. And it's that permission of, sometimes we just need the right person at the right time to say, it's okay. You can do this. Right. That's all it is. Cause I know I've had my angels all along the way, and they've been, sometimes the people you least expect it, where they were just there at the time when you needed that affirmation. And I want to speak to the one thing that's really important you said around this fusion between the masculine and feminine. I know we're talking a lot about it in the collective. And for me, what feminine leadership is, and the intentionality behind that, is that leadership to me has been so it's just a very masculine energy in that word. And the way we talk about it, you lead like this, you do like it's always in the space of doing. And combining the feminine leadership with that it's really the intersection between the flow and the structure. And that's what, and then you add the conscious part. It's like, then you're choosing which power am I going to access for which situation, or what's the fusion look like, and where do I allow, and where do I receive, where do I surrender? And then I don't like to use the words control and push as much, because for me, that's what I'm comfortable with those words. And so the antithesis is important, but for some, having the balance of saying, no, I got to take, you said it earlier, aligned action. Those are the words I like better, because it honors the feminine inner kind of voice, and then says, how do I create something? And then how do I deliver it through, whatever strategies, systems, structures, whatever those things look like. But I think the feminine is needed so badly in these corporate systems and structures, because we literally just got off a conversation where we were talking about how, even the jobs and the roles, we're trying to make everyone the same. We're not honoring our individuality, our inner power, our the knowing. What you said is so beautiful. The difference between knowing and wisdom, the difference between taking what you know and transmuting it through your own filter and delivering it in a way that only you can. Let's lift one another up. Let's show each other that the way you are going to take, you and I, we're so similar, but the way you deliver is going to be through your own beautiful, unique embodiment. And it's going to be for the people that need to hear it. And then the same thing with me, right? So, or all of us, I should say. And so really just inviting this whole kind of industry to look at the way in which we work and how we can invite more flow and more creativity and more abundance. And hey, guess what? More luxury, right? How can it be more luxurious? How can it be more I was joking with these ladies, how can your, frothy cup of cacao be just any more supportive and nurturing in your workday? So I can keep going, but.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love all of it. And some of it's a stretch for me too, as I'm listening. I can relate to how easily, and I know the listeners can relate to how easily, especially when we feel, or I'll speak for myself. When I feel out of flow, when I feel insecure, when I feel tired, when I'm not well nourished, when I don't properly move my body, when I'm not in my body, I revert to the things that are easier, which actually are the control, the busyness, the doing, right? The busyness is a distraction from our truth, our inner truth, our inner wisdom, and how it's a distraction from connection,
Mm-hmm.
with others. It's a distraction from relationships. It's a distraction from growth, from healing, right? The busyness. It is so easy to fall into it all the time. And if we haven't learned anything from 2020, I mean, we were basically came to a screeching halt. It's been wonderful to not have to say no to things.
Yeah.
And just the fact that I'm saying this, I actually say no a lot, but now it's like I don't even have to because, it's just
Yeah.
everything has slowed down. And I was already intentionally slowing down, but this year's been actually quite wonderful because everybody's slowing down. You mentioned one of the things that I love that you said is, really that embodiment and how what what really came through for me is, like you said, you have a way of delivering messages. I have a way of delivering messages. That's how we fuse what we create, right? The creative flow then comes into the delivery of the message. And when we come from a place of knowing and trusting and the embodiment of our own truth and the balance of the being and the becoming, the contraction and the expansion, and all of that, there's like a different energy around it where we just know that we're held and supported. And I love how you said, like, we're not just talking about, sisterhood and partners and friendships, but we're also held by spirit, by source, by God, for the listeners, whatever word resonates for you. And you and I talked about this before we started recording, is like, there is like an inner power in that knowing that we're always held and supported, even in the most challenging times, even in the biggest contractions, if not more than. And what we talked about is that that's available for everyone. And one of the things that you shared that you love to share, a word that has been coming up in our conversations lately and has been coming up a lot to me in my own meditation, my own reflection and journaling, is the word devotion. And devotion has it's different than commitment, right? Like the energy of the word commitment is different than devotion. Devotion for me, and I'd like to hear what it feels like for you, but feels very heartfelt, feels very more in a path of surrender. It's like the devotion, it is like commitment, but it's a little bit more open, I feel. And it is a word that resonates more with that softer feminine presence. And one of the things that I loved about you when we met, which I didn't share with the audience, but we met a couple of years ago in a mastermind with Amber Lillystrom, is your blend in how you clearly get really clear on your intention, you follow through, and then you also, this other part of you that not everybody sees unless they're in your inner circle or they're following your Instagram, is that you have a very devoted space for spirit and for your own personal growth and your personal well-being and your role as a mother and in your family. So would you be willing to share a little bit about that with us? Like, how do you create your own personal flow between those two energies?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So maybe just hitting on the first question, Jen, around what does devotion mean to me, and specifically, I like to offer and say devotion is the new discipline. And I've been saying that because to me, devotion is the feminine word for that commitment that you're talking about, but it's next level because devotion doesn't require, or there's no expectation of getting something in return. And so a lot of times in the West, we don't understand the word devotion because, and I'll give a story that one of my teachers shares. She talked about how in India, it doesn't matter what level you were, but if you felt devoted to a cause or to a temple or whatever, like it was never above you to go clean the temple floor, because that's an act of service and that's an act of devotion. And it was just showing your commitment to something that was bigger than you and greater than you. And just even washing each tile with like the greatest level of presence is a devotion towards something that's bigger than you. And I look at that towards my children, like those are souls that I'm supporting that are way bigger than me, right? That I've been given the gift to guide on their path. the people that I serve, like it's devotion towards them, right? But it always has to start, and you can even hear in my own learning, is like the devotion has to start to myself, right? Because I need to give to myself. I need to be able to receive in order to give to others. And the biggest, I would say, so I shared that the birth of my son was quite traumatic for me, just in terms of how it took me several years to recover, not just from the birth, but the first year was really tough. And by the time I got pregnant with my second child, which was my daughter, I was in the space. I started to learn what devotion really meant. And it changed the course of my pregnancy, even though I had so the first one was an easy pregnancy and a hard birth. And then the second was a really hard pregnancy. But because I was in the mental space and I was so devoted and I was so clear that I was held by my, spiritual team or by source, and I also, the number one lesson around devotion too, is that it allows you to ask for what you need. When you're in a space of devotion to yourself, it's not like discipline, where discipline's like, I have to power through. I need to push through. I need to get done. Devotion is like, how am I supporting and allowing and trusting for the thing to come through? And it's not all on my shoulders. And that's such a think it, just even feel in my energy how that, receiving that differently. And so by the time it was the day to birth my daughter, you would have from the outside wondered, I still kind of worked to the last minute. I delivered my next year budget at 1 p.m. while I was having contractions, but in a space of like, what would feel good? It would feel good to have this done before I left. But if it doesn't get done, it's okay. It would feel good that my parents would be on their way, but they weren't. And I'll get to that point, which is really important. And so I said, what are all the things that need to be supported right now in this moment as I'm moving through this experience? And what I will share with you is like the greatest act of surrender and devotion is with my daughter, being in a space of fully trusting my body, knowing that I've done all the things to support myself energetically, nutrition, like food, all the things, because I said, I'm not doing it the same way again. I'm going to be supported and I'm going to ask for what I need. And it was the greatest miracle of my life. My partner, my husband, delivered my daughter on the bathroom floor in our house that evening.
Wow.
And she came, I was in such a deep meditative state as the contractions were coming towards the end that I didn't even realize that I was like, when do you go to the hospital? When they're like 1 minute apart or 2 minutes? I don't even know. I just called my husband. I was like, I think they're getting really close. Like, I don't know. Cause I was in such of like honoring my femininity, trusting that that spirit was like there guiding and holding me and knowing that it was going to be exactly the way it needed to be. And then got a little wonky because then she decided she was going to come and like she was going to come really fast. And so again, being so like, this is the power of practice, like being so comfortable in my own, practice and in my own mental game at the time that I was like, okay, now you just do the next right action. There's no time to make a plan. There's no time to like, this is beyond me, right? This is beyond us. And so it's the ultimate test and surrender. And again, thank God, like we delivered her and she was healthy and everything was amazing, but it was one of the greatest miracles. And I really feel like in a way it was a gift from God to me to be like, see, you can do this. Like, and now you take this and this is part of your calling and you support women and you whatever, take it from here, right? There's tons of lessons from that, just that one experience that I bring forth into all the work that I do. Sorry, did I answer?
It's beautiful. So actually that is the next question is, how do you weave that experience and all that you learned in that experience into your daily practice? Because it's important to just really understand that you're a mother, you're a business owner, you're an executive, you're a coach. You have your own, we haven't even talked about this yet, but you're very devoted in your practice of Kundalini.
Yeah.
And you're eating well. You're doing all like, so when somebody's listening and they're like, how does one, we become the thing, right? And how do you weave what you learned in that moment into your daily life, your daily practice as you balance everything that is near and dear to you.
Yeah. Well, the first number one underlying principle is that everything is sacred. So all of what I, a lot of times when clients come to work with me and they're like, it's my job, or it's this thing, or it's where I live, or it's this external thing I'll even say myself, that I've even in the past been like, that's the issue. If I remove that issue, if I change that issue, then I think I'll be happier. I think I'll get what I want. And why I say that it's all sacred is because it's our relationship to the thing that makes it whatever we want it to be, actually, which is so empowering, right? Like, how exciting is that? Like, I get to choose how I want to relate to the thing. And the problem, if you will, is that takes practice. So when I remember I would hear people say that and be like, okay, well, I'm going to choose today that I want to relate it to. And then the next day I forget. And the next day I don't do it. And then I wonder, wait, oh, that advice that they gave me that was just like, some toxic positivity, that I'm just, I love my job, but I really don't. It's like, no, that's not what we're saying, right? If the underlying tenet of what I believe to be true in my life is that it's all sacred and that it's all a gift. And if I'm always looking at it through that lens, and I will share right now, somebody's saying to me, literally, I had a client say, okay, I'm at this age of my life and I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't want to have to interview, and I don't want to have to do all these things. And why now? Why now? Or the narrative that then she practiced, which is, I'm healthy enough to do this. I get to be in the space. I get to share my gifts with other people. And it's not this toxic positivity. It's literally just, it's two sides of the same coin. No, is that I don't know if that's the
I know
right
what you mean.
You know what I mean? And so what I mean by that, when I say it's all sacred, it's washing the dishes. Like Jen knows, I share that because what I realized, I had a teacher a long time ago say, you're going to get to a point in your practice. I'm big on reflection, contemplation, meditation. And the reason I'm not saying just meditation, because Sadhguru gives this beautiful thing where, I think he's the one that said it. He's like, you're not even meditating, because if you're meditating, you're still doing something. You're just in stillness. Or Ram Dass says, awareness, observation, whatever word feels really good to you. But I spend a lot of time in contemplation, awareness, whatever you want to call it, meditation. And like, that's part of my superpower. I mean, that's how I get the insights. And that's when I choose each morning to say, I will look at everything that I do today, that I get to do today, as a sacred gift, because I'm alive. Number one, thank you, right? When I have a client book in a discovery call and just wants, thank you, please have, thank you, God, can I please have some more, right? Every single thing. This is for my friend Emily. I got a $32 check in the mail for something that we overpaid. And in the past, I would just, shove it in the door. And I could look at it and just say, oh, those people, they messed up and I gave them too much money and blah, blah, blah. Or, thank you, Spirit. Thank you for sharing these gifts with me, right? So it's a practice of looking at everything as a gift. It's a practice of supporting myself. And once I started looking at it that way, I didn't have to diet anymore. I didn't have to I was like, oh, wow, I get to eat this because it's nourishing and it's going to give me energy and it's going to make me feel good. But it didn't all happen at once. This is like 8 years. And I'm not saying 8 years because I want to discourage anyone, but I don't think you just go from, for me, when I started, I wasn't eating well. And so foundationally, I needed to change some things just to be able to get into the space to sit and receive. And then, continue to build on top of that. So as a mom, I look at, every act of making food for my children as service. And I'm not perfect. So there are moments where I don't feel like it's service, right? Where I'm like, okay, I'm your restaurant hostess. What would you like? Kind of thing, right? And there's days where it feels frustrating and there's days that it feels annoying and overwhelming. So I will not try to tell you that it's all perfect, but I don't stay there very long. I have those moments where I'm like frustrated or I get impatient, and then my breath is my superpower, which I said at the beginning. You're always 1 second away from your next breath. And every breath is an opportunity to shift back into alignment. And with Kundalini, that's what really, I was blessed to have a teacher that was very pragmatic. And for me was, as I was moving from this very masculine approach to everything in life, I had a teacher that was an entrepreneur and a very strong businesswoman. And so because she had that, I was able to receive her
Mm.
teachings, the teachings that I needed, because I resonated enough with her. And that's why for me right now, it's important for me to stand authentically in what I am, so that hopefully that creates a bridge for others to say
Mm.
like, yeah, I get it. I feel that way too. And so that relationship allows me to then receive whatever I need to receive, whatever messages or teachings. And with Kundalini, because there's such a deep active, like it's so consistent, and the idea is you show up every day for 2.5 hours is the recommended. My practice isn't 2.5 hours, but most days it's an hour and a half, and that's kind of like the baseline right now. And I'm not saying that to brag. It's mostly just because when I'm in, that is when I feel like I get all of the fruits of the experience, and it really puts me into alignment. And it allows me to serve in a way, all the people. Like then when my kids wake up, I'm not annoyed that now, like, oh my gosh, I have no time for myself, right? I choose to wake up before they do. I get into alignment. I can receive them. I can be excited to like get them on their day because I've nurtured myself. I've gotten myself into alignment. And now it's my joy and honor, right, to say, how can I serve you?
Yeah.
And that feels really good. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing all of that. I mean, I hold truth to everything that you just shared as well. And what I want to speak to is we talk about a practice, and the beautiful thing is that the more you, as I said before I asked the question, the more you practice, the more you become. So then it's less in the doing and the practicing and more of the becoming, which evolves over time. I've
Mhm.
noticed in my own journey, that and if we live in cycles and in the flow, like everything is, we're allowing for change and growth and expansion and contraction. And what has showed up for me in the past year is it's more the stillness in the moment rather than practicing the stillness, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like noticing that moments where you could respond in one way, or you could choose to take that breath, right?
Mhm.
Every breath is a new beginning. And as I forget what the words that you said, but in my words, it's come back to the breath. Every breath is a new beginning. Where the breath goes, the thoughts go, the body goes. Um, and it's in those moments of just taking that breath and allowing for a pause to and that breath, that pause actually shifts the energy in your body, because it gives you that second to create awareness of
Yes.
where you are in that moment, and then from there choosing. And sometimes there is, we're just really low energy or feel overwhelmed, and we do feel frustrated doing their laundry, or doing the
Yeah.
laundry and cleaning the house again, right? And then there's times where we can take a breath. And we're talking about home, but we can choose this in our business, in our work, as executives, where for all the women, for all the listeners, wherever you are, it's taking that breath and just allowing yourself to receive stillness in that moment, and just notice and observe and witness, right?
And it's also, Jen, just to add, it's also when you command your breath, you can command the room. Like, whether you're a mother or whether you're sitting in a boardroom, and I've tested this, where I can feel that the energy is a little frantic, and whether it's my kids and I'm like, and I just hold that space. And sometimes it's even intentionally very loud. Like I give it a very deep inhale and a very deep exhale, because I'm looking to stabilize the energy. Because if I'm the stable one, right, then I can give
Mm.
that energy out, and I can share that with others. And the other thing I love that you said is the pause. Like before I had my daughter, and it was just, I had, so it was one kid, and between the two of us, it was like, you could do man on man defense, right? So it's like, if I needed to do my practice, my husband was with him and vice versa, and we'd move around that way. But once we introduced the second, now it was a little more like, I wasn't sleeping again, and we were, she was breastfeeding overnight. And so I really had to look at I couldn't do a 1.5 hour practice anymore. It forced me to create what you said, the power of the pause. And how can I take every moment in the day and turn it into, even if it's a micro minute, or every time she breastfed was a beautiful opportunity. But then it was like the nights where it's like, I don't want to rock her to sleep anymore. So I would find a mantra that uplifted me, because if I was uplifted energetically, I was giving that to her in that moment. And so I realized that, like, all of these tools that I had been gathering over the years, that in a very masculine structure say morning routine. If you don't have a morning routine, your day is not going to be, whatever, right? The disclaimers that you all see. Here's how the feminine does it. She's like, oh, I get to flow this in through my day. I get to get into alignment whenever I want. And by the way, like, I get to do it in a way that feels supported, and every day gets to look different. That's so, like, empowering, right? I mean, it's just, it takes the pressure off from feeling like it has to be this way every single, whatever. And you get what I'm saying. But, and that's how
I'm receiving.
Yeah, sorry.
I am like, I took a deep breath and was receiving as you spoke that, because when we started the conversation about conscious feminine leadership, the word that you said is giving permission. And, the breath, you said, when you command your breath, you command a room. And that's a way that we can give permission, because everybody wants it as soon as they take up your, right? Like, the whole room is like, yeah, that felt good. Now I'm ready to listen. Really, like, it's so unconscious. We don't even, our breath is so unconscious that when we consciously choose to take that breath, it resets the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's a wonderful tool that all of us can use in every moment. And you don't have to be trained in Kundalini. You don't have to be trained in any type of breath work. It's just the pause and taking the breath and resetting.
Yes.
Yeah. One other thing I really wanted to bring up that we talked about before, and I know that you just did a little workshop on this, is the idea of imposter syndrome to owning your power. And as we were speaking about this, before the podcast, I thought, I shared with you, I have never really related to the word imposter syndrome, but I do relate to feeling a little uncomfortable about really, truly owning my power. Because what does that say about me if I do? And what does it say about me if I don't? What does it look like? What are others going to say? That type of thing. And I know that, as we're speaking to women right now about conscious feminine leadership, right? It's like, so we're giving them permission to step foot on a new path, a new idea, a new journey of really allowing themselves to allow, to surrender, to be present, to be intentional, to be devoted in the way that they show up, to live in the flow, to let go of the hustle, to take aligned action. Those are the things that we've talked about today. And we can do this, by the way, in any environment that we show up in, because as you shared, which I loved so much, and I speak to this all the time, whether it's about food or relationships or money, whatever it is, it's always about the relationship to the thing. It's not the thing. That's a way that we give our power away, by the way, is blaming the thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, here I am. I'm curious about conscious feminine leadership. I'm ready. I'm open. You've given me permission. I'm ready to receive. But I don't know if I can do it, because if I fully show up in it, what is it going to say about me? Is it really going to be authentic? Is it really going to be enough? Is it, there's all these things that can come up, right? As soon as we move into that space. So can you share a little bit about, how this is one of the, if the obstacle is the way, this is one path that some of us will step foot on, that we'll be confronted with. We're going to be confronted with the thing that we want. And questioning our ability to move through it and questioning ourselves on that path, the imposter syndrome. And it's keeping us from really owning our own truth and our own power. So can you speak a little bit about how you notice that this is showing up as one of the ways that's, just something that women are really stepping into and working with? I like to say working with as they step on this path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just I want to acknowledge first and honor that there's like a collective calling for us to bring our whole selves to what we do. And the reason why I know that, or how I know that to be true, is that as I talked to several women, clients, even just got off a training this morning, I asked women to reflect on a situation where they felt that they were in their true authentic selves and they had permission to bring themselves wholly. And we used a work situation. And I asked them to take a moment to reflect on how did that feel in their physical body? And then I had them do the opposite, where they wanted to share something authentically. They were giving feedback or they were recommending something and they were shut down. And someone said, no, that's not a good idea, or that's not, or they felt that they couldn't express. And for me, it was such a beautiful illumination because as you can imagine, there was contraction when they didn't feel fully expressed. But guess what else? There were actual physical symptoms of sweating. There were physical symptoms of feeling nauseous in their stomachs. And so just giving you and so imagine that on a daily basis, you're not able to bring your whole self and you are not able to step fully into who you are. That literally you start to become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then you think it's the job or you think it's the thing or whatever, right? And to me, this is so illuminating because this is, if we don't have healthy corporate structures and systems, we not only are hurting our people, but we're not getting the most, like, the creative potential. We're not getting the innovative ways that we can work and do business and create results. And we're not getting ideas from people. We're just getting the watered down version of what everyone else does. And that's not really interesting. And if you believe in competition, which I don't so much, but if you do, it's definitely not helping you get ahead of the competition. And so what I invite us to really look at, and why is conscious feminine leadership so important? I'm going to just tell a quick story. Is one, it allows you to fully express. It allows you to shine as bright as you can. And my story is that when you bring your whole self, you give others permission to do that. So a few years ago, it was my first opportunity to be in front of a room of hundreds of people. I was in a new role. I did have a team of 1,000 people. They were virtual, but I stepped in and I just was like, I saw all the other presentations of PowerPoints and all the things. And I just said, I want to create a deep connection for this group. And we were all remote. And so I said, how can I do that in this moment? And so I did ask for permission to try something a little different. And I opened up the talk by having everyone close their eyes and do 3 breaths. And then I had them with their eyes closed, reflect on a situation and a person in the room that they wanted to honor, that they were grateful for, that they were just in appreciation of. And this happened 2 or 3 years ago. You know, people did it. Some people were receptive, some weren't. I could see some people didn't want to close their eyes, but I didn't care because this was a way, whoever needed this gift, because for me, it was a gift. I'd never done it before. I don't know how the idea came into my mind, but it was something that needed to be done. And I trusted that. And I did it, even though I was worried and super scared that everyone was going to think I was weird, this yogi person coming in and now trying to tell all these engineers and project managers and all these people what to do and to breathe, and then I had so many people over the last few years, over and over and over again, say to me, thank you for that gift, because it created a relationship with someone. A woman came up to me that I had no idea I had touched in her life and said, I'm in appreciation for you. Thank you for giving me that moment to then now to be able to honor you. And then I was able to honor this other gentleman who gave me this beautiful experience when we first started working together. And so to me, when you can fully honor yourself, like your authenticity, and you are confident in it, which I presented myself, even though I was nervous, as very confident in it, like people have no choice but to accept you. And the people have no choice but to be like, wow. Because when you're in your greatness, when you're shining in your light, it's like impossible to look away. It's like, yes, you want to be affected by it. And so I'm sharing that because I know that, and I just heard it on the call earlier, there could be women or men out there that are like, they have that little voice inside that's like, I would really like to be a little risky, or I really love to do something a little different. But I'm nervous about how others will take it. I'm nervous that they'll judge me. I'm nervous, whatever, right? Whatever the voices are that are saying no, that means that's the invitation to do it. That's the
Yes, yes.
invitation to go. I'm like, yes, because it's
Yep.
scary, and like, do it anyways. So
It is the
yeah.
invitation. Yeah. I love that you shared that. I did corporate wellness and did it at GE actually, and I used to be an engineer, so I got asked to come in and teach nutrition. And when I started my nutrition talk, I took them for like a 5-minute meditation, and this was a room full of men, so it was a real stretch for me, and they loved it, and they were like, "We want you to come back and do more of that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Because the truth is, for as long as I was a health coach and I studied functional medicine and I mean autoimmunity, I that was my path for 10 years. What it came down to is, as you said, it's like it's the relationship with the thing. So if you're not in alignment with self, and you're not even considering what is nourishing for you. You're not even considering how you feel if you're not connected to your body. Taking that breath helps to connect us to our body.
Yeah. And we all just want to be seen. We want to be heard.
It's
We want to be honored. Right. And like you create that meditation, it's like you created a connection in the moment, and we created all this beautiful connection in that one thing. And guess what? It was now permission for other leaders to do that whenever they wanted. They could take that little exercise. And like you said in the beginning, it ripples, right? The one person that you touch, hopefully that ripples out. Because and I don't want to sound like I'm being conceited and like I touched all these people, but I was just in my own authentic self. That's
and
it.
that is the permission.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it always reminds me of my favorite one of my favorite poems, and I've read it before and I share it all the time. Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson is not our darkness but our light, right? And it's when we allow our own light to shine, we unconsciously give permission to others to do the same. And you know what? It feels like freedom. And that's a different kind of, that is inner power. That's like
Power.
inner power. When I think of empowerment, I mean true empowerment in the essence, the truth, the being grounded in that knowing is a lot more than the force or the discipline like we've talked about. So it's
And
all in the
yeah, I was going to tell you, and that's why you don't resonate with the word imposter syndrome, and neither did I, because I think the real imposter is that what you just said, which is we're not afraid that we're not enough. We're not afraid that we're a fraud. The narrative makes us think that we're frauds because, okay, who are we to do that? I think it's exactly what you, Marianne, said, which is it's the light, the
right.
greatness, like the being able to step fully into that light and shine. That's scary.
It is. And this would be a
It's
conversation. It's also where the gift is, and it would be a conversation for another day. But to go
yes,
even
sorry.
no, because what comes up is like what to go deeper is like what is the fear around that, right? Like there's the fears of abandonment and rejection, but the truth is that just the very idea that that fear comes up for you is a reflection to the inner abandonment of your truth and the inner self-rejection. So it's all, everything is just mirroring back to us, right? And that's the gift in the pause and the slowing down in the breath, is because we realize, as you have said, that everything is so much greater than us. It's so much greater than us, and it's not about us at the same time, right? Like it's so much bigger than us, and it's never about us. It's always about our connection to everything that is in our lives. It has been so wonderful to have you on the podcast, and you co-hosted my Inner Radiance retreat with me. I know that I have listeners that I'll be specifically sending this to that are, in roles in their executive work, or they're looking for permission to really step into the flow, either in their executive roles at work or through creating a new business. And so I'm really excited to share this with other people. What would you tell the former version of yourself if you could speak to her? What words of wisdom would you share with her?
Yeah. You don't have to do it alone.
Oh, I love that.
It's just, I keep saying it now because after having been in women's community and getting to know you and get like just all the places that I've finally allowed myself to be supported by men and women, but there's so much power in women's community. And it's like, that's why I'm so inspired to create the container, why I've created the containers and why I'm in the containers. And, it's because not having to do it alone is it's X for the achiever. It is exponential, right? The growth is accelerated. The healing it's next level, it's deeper. And then it's more fun.
Oh,
When you
yes.
get to share. I mean, when we met, it was like Jen and I met and it was just like, oh, hey, so like, this is my inner child issue. And I'm just telling her all of my things because it's so freeing. I didn't have to, know her life history. It was like, we just connected. And that's the power when when you're vibing, with us in the set, if that feels good, that's a sign. It means you're getting called to be in the space with other, women at a certain frequency, which is just, like the growth is exponential and it's just so fun.
It really is. It is fun, and it is the devotion and commitment to do our own inner work that allows it to be fun, right? Like we kind of skipped the whole awkward dating beginning and we were just able to go. And I love that because that shows up in all the relationships that I call into my life, because I'm grounded in my truth and I'm able to hear whatever it is somebody has to say without judgment. I'm able to hold that space for the person and for myself, as you do as well. So yeah, we did go straight to that. And you do create space for women to come together. And I love how you shared, allowed myself to be supported. Like allow myself to be supported.
Yeah. It's so hard for us to do that. Or I shouldn't say us. It was very hard for me to do that for a long time. And even when I would ask for help, it's like I would find a reason that something else was more important than me. This appointment, oh, I should reschedule it because this is coming up, or this meeting needs me, or somebody else needs me. And I was sharing with Jen just before we started, like, I just went through a snowstorm to get my healing this morning because it was like, okay, thanks spiritual team, like thanks universe. I'm allowing myself to be supported and that feels right in my body. And so I'm going to do that. And so but it takes practice, because for years I said something else was always more important than my own healing, my own process, my own well-being. Let's use that word, well-being, because that's the general, feeling. And it was like, no, I'm dropping that narrative. And the reason I could do that so confidently is because I was supported by other women that I saw how free they felt in their lives because they had dropped those narratives and that they were receiving. And I was like, what am I missing? Oh, it could be easy. It could be graceful. It could be freeing. Like those are the, and I was like, I want that. And so and being around that frequency and that energy, it's so uplifting, because guess what? And this is also in Kundalini. Sometimes you can't hold your hands up for the whole time in the meditation and they're shaking and you want to bring them down. And guess what? When you're in community and you're supported by other women, you get to put your arms down, you get to rest, you get to feel tired and know still that you're being uplifted and supported.
Yes.
Woo.
Beautiful. Wow. Energetically. Yeah. In communion through spirit.
Mhm.
So you create a container, you have a circle where you support women. And so could you share a little bit about what that looks like and who it's for?
Yeah, it's the Will Mastermind is what it's called. And really it's for any woman that is looking for more. And that sounds really generic. And it's intentionally that way because I do believe that whoever feels that this message resonates with them, or they're feeling that they can see a part of themselves in my story, then, the work and the way that I can support you, but also that the other women can support you energetically, we'll know if it's aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it goes back to that fundamental question that I said in the beginning, which is there has to be more to life than this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know I know I have a deeper calling, but I don't know how to quite access it. Or maybe I'm finding that these areas in my life, they feel like blocks, or like we talked about, Jen, it's like, yeah, well, I don't know how to change my relationship to the thing. And so what are the practices, that I can support you with, or the women with, that will allow you to get to that space of knowing? And that's my passion, is like just helping guide you and just give you all these different tools, and you get to pick and choose. Like, oh, this one feels like it works. Okay, I'm going to incorporate that. And the data person in me is like, let's do a test. Let's see how it feels. Like, let's try this for 40 days. I'm not in the like, there's no one formula, because we're all on our own unique path. And what I really, my goal with the program is it's to give enough, experiences, and I bring in a 6-month container, I bring in 6 different teachers, entrepreneurs, CEOs. Jen was at one of our sessions. And the idea is, the more that you can see what's possible in women that have transformed, that also gives you more permission, and it gives you tools to incorporate and create your own transformation that's unique to you. And that's part of your purpose and your calling. And then also, it's also tactical, like energetic interviewing, like how to nail your interviews, or how to be how to energetically interview someone else, right? I take very pragmatic business things and allow you to see how the conscious feminine leader approaches those. And then I share the results, because I have now my own results, which have been, tested. And then all of my clients that have gone through and have just had tremendous, and what happens, Jen, when we do the inner work, all the external stuff aligns. Like, you come in, oh, I want more money, I want a different job. Okay, cool, I can work with that. But what happens is the inner transformation just allows you to get what you're already abundant. So the inner transformation just allows you to receive it.
Yep, that's it. It's the perception that you're not that is really the disconnect to the thing that it is that you're
Yeah.
calling in, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So it
It's
sounds easier said than done, and it does take inner work, but and as you continue to practice it more, it actually does simplify, because it actually does become just the practice of receiving and allowing. That it really does. And in the balance of being and becoming, taking the aligned action to call in and create more of what does resonate and feel aligned for you. And the reason I say that is because for all of the listeners, as you listen today, if what Jelena shared resonates with you, if you can relate to, if you are an executive, if you're looking for, that blend of conscious feminine leadership, either in your own personal business, or if you're an executive in your job and you're looking for ways to blend in more of that in well-being, in devotion, in intention, in presence, and this resonated with you, then I invite you to check out her website and her social media platforms, which I will share in the show notes with everyone. You also have a gift.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say you have a gift on your website. You have the ebook, right, that you can download. So go to her website to check that out. Oops, there goes my speaker.
Yeah, I love being on Instagram. I love connecting there. I love talking. So I love people to just reach out, and I'd love to get to know you and know what's coming up for you. And, really, I think the biggest thing is helping you achieve your goals, helping you achieve those results, that's important too. Like having the resources to grow your business. And as women, having the financial acumen, like the Conscious Feminine Leadership Academy is, yes, it's the woo-woo stuff that I'm talking about inner work and clarity and self-care. But then there's business, women's business. And what does that look like? And it's women's manifestation. And that, like, how do you call and create things and bring them into, like, birth them and bring that into fruition? Why can I say that? And then money mindset, all about how we take resources and use them to maximize and share our message or grow our business or grow our income, and all that's all super important. So it's really about this fusion of the masculine and feminine, right? And how to really make that work for you and for your goals. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Jen, can I take a moment? I want to honor you for holding space for this conversation. I want to honor you for the work you're doing in this world and how many people you are touching. I'm like in awe of your energy. And when we got to work together for your retreat, I saw Jen, for all of you, Jen, I don't know if you can share that again, but Jen and her gifts and teaching and sharing is just a poof, like an arrow to the heart. Like you feel that expansion and you feel, just this uplift. Like I just feel uplifted in your presence. So I want to honor you for your commitment to yourself and the work you've done, because you're giving all of us that gift. You're giving us that transmission and uplifting all of us, even just with your presence. So thank you.
Thank you. I am wholeheartedly receiving that. I am receiving it. And it really means a lot coming from you. And just, I want to reflect back that I believe that what we honor and see in our sisters is a reflection of our inner self. So just reflecting that back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your heart, your time, your space, your presence, your devotion.
Yes.
And your willingness, your will, all of it together in this just beautifully brightly colored package of bright orange, which I love. Or is that coral? Is that like a coral?
I think it's orange.
Yeah. I've been moving into orange for a couple of years now. Like it's been calling me, and I didn't like it. But it's just funny because in the energy world, like every color has a frequency and a vibration and a meaning and a feeling. And I'm like, and it's, the color of abundance and joy and creativity. And it is a sacred feminine color. Actually, it's the sacral chakra. So it's beautiful. Thank you, sister. Thank you, my dear. For everyone listening, I will put links in the show notes so you can find her, and you can find out how to join her community. You can download her ebook and find her on Instagram. You have some of the most amazing Instagram stories. I love them. Yes.
Watch me singing on Instagram. That's usually what I'm doing, singing or dancing. So.
Owning yourself wholly. Yes. I love it.
Awesome.
Yes. One of these days, that is getting visible is like the growth edge for me, because I love to dance and sing. I mean, I'm doing it all the time in my car and in the shower, but I'm not doing it for other people yet. So yeah. All right, sister. Well, have a wonderful day. Thank you again for joining.